Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfoud, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom with Bob Olson, who will now introduce today's show and speaker.
Welcome to Just Plain Theology from Rome, Sweet Rome. This program is offered by Natalia Yushin on location in Rome. And now here she is, Natalia.
Good afternoon, Bob. So today I have two very special guests with me. I have Sister Christine Gautier, who's a Dominican sister. She's originally from France, and now she's teaching at the Angelicum. And today we'll be talking specifically about the Church's teaching on social justice. And she'll give us many of the principles underlying the teaching, some of the more important documents. We'll touch a little bit on the development of the doctrine and so on. And then I have Mr. Andrew Camilleri, who is a student at the Angelicum also. More importantly for him, I think, is that he is a member of Focolare. He can tell us about that organization and what he's done. And I think it'd be fair to say that the principles we'll be speaking about with Sister Christine have been put into practice in the work that Focolare does. So without further ado, here's Sister Christine. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you, Andrew, very much also for joining us from the beautiful area. You're in Castel Gandolfo, is that right?
Very close, yes. Only about 10 minutes drive from Castel Gandolfo. Yes, we're in the Roman castles. And we're also enjoying really good weather here. Not so hot and not so cold, but really beautiful.
Not so cold. No, because it was very hot here today, and so you're probably enjoying a nice breeze there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's start with Sister Christine. Could you tell us a little bit about your background, how you came to be a Dominican sister, and how you came to Italy, and then how you got to teaching about social justice?
Okay. I was born in Paris, France. And I considered to become a religious when I was a student. What was striking, I was studying business.
Oh.
And it struck me that many students were leaving church and sacrament life and etc. But my opinion is that they don't know Christ, and they have false opinions on what is church and what is our vocation, and they think it's contrary to happiness, but no, we know that it's the way to happiness.
Indeed.
So it was very sad to see all these crowds of students leaving, and that influenced me to choose the Dominican life. I was struck by the figure of St. Thomas Aquinas and his desire for truth and for transmitting truth by his preaching. So that's why I choose Dominican life.
Had you had contact with Dominican sisters, or if you were in a secular setting and you were studying business, how did you come to know St. Thomas and his writings?
That was very strange, because at the beginning I didn't enter for St. Thomas. I encountered one sister, but in a context of a summer camp, and to help to educate young people. So it was not the first impact. I was struck by the joy of the sisters and the teaching of some priors to these young people in the summer camp. That's why I was attracted to know more about Dominican life.
Okay.
And then I discovered St. Thomas Aquinas.
The order. Okay. And how old were you when you entered?
22.
Okay, so your young adult formation was completely
I gave up all.
Yeah.
And I thought, never again. I wanted a new life, more spiritual life. But then I was attracted by the active life in order to transmit, to preach what I could contemplate and discover in the meditation of the scripture and in the studies and so on. And I came back to economic life because I was asked to be the bursar of my province, my Italian province.
God doesn't waste anything, does he?
Indeed.
That's funny. Now, so they sent you to Rome then to study, and then you started teaching?
Yes, in a way, because there were no longer a house of study in France, so I came to Rome.
Oh, okay.
And I studied, but it was very long to obtain my STB, because we were always working and studying, so I was only half-time studying. But it was good, because in the mission, you have occasion to understand how to find the words right to reach the people, and you can experience what is the thirst of the people, and it makes you more mature to study.
That's true. I hadn't thought of it that way, but that's right. And instead of just living in the theoretical, you have a first-hand knowledge of what is from the theory, not only how to apply it, but what the people need from it concretely in order to help them go forward. Oh, okay. Andrew, I want to go to you because we may be limited in time with you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be part of Focolare and what you do and all of that.
Yeah. Well, actually, my kind of life story is very close to the one of Sister Christine. I'm really happy to hear her life story, at least very briefly. Well, actually, I met this Catholic, it's a movement which is rooted in the Catholic Church, though it is open to the other churches, and even it welcomes dialogue with other religions, even of people who have goodwill, but they have different convictions which are not religious. And I met the movement when I was 17 years old, just before starting university, and I was really fascinated, like the sister was saying, by the joy of the people that I met. They were mostly young people who were already participating, and I was really touched by their lives. Then I did my engineering course and specialized in aeronautics, especially aircraft and aircraft engines. But at one point I felt that I had to leave everything. Hello?
Yes, we're listening.
Okay, I had to leave. I felt the desire to leave everything for God, and it was a big shock for my family, of course, but it was something really marvelous.
What did that involve, leaving? Because that's more, what would you call it, would you call it a secular institute, or how is it classified canonically?
Well, we are lay people, but we take our private vows in poverty, chastity, and obedience. And we live in a community. Usually, we're made up of communities that are 4 to 5 persons in each community, and we go wherever there is need, and we try to witness the life of the gospel through our life at work or studying or whatever we do. Try to put into practice the life of the gospel. And first, after some time of formation, which I spent near Florence in a place called Lopiano, there was a big need to go to open the Focolare in Pakistan, and that was really the time when there was, just after our arrival, we were only 2, there was the Kuwait war, and it was quite difficult because the Christian community were the culprits of the whole situation, and so many times they were blamed for this difficult situation, and it was very important for us to be there to share with their trials and with their big difficulty. Anyway, and it was quite strong. After some time, I was transferred to the Philippines, where there was a need to take care of the formation of some young people who were attracted to the Focolare in a spirituality center very close to Manila. And there it was really interesting through contact with the barrios, with these very, very poor areas very close to Tagaytay. We started off a social center through the adoptions at a distance, which Pope John Paul II had invited Christian families to adopt at a distance young children who would stay with their families, but they could also be benefited with some money in order to attend school and to have some medical services and so on. Anyway, and then at one point I was requested to go back to Pakistan because during the first period of 7 years I learned quite well the language, and so they needed me to go back. And there I stayed there another 7 years. And eventually staying with a visa was not so easy, and so I had to move out. And since then I'm here in Rome, taking care of the young people at first, and now in other areas.
Okay. So let's get started talking about social justice in terms of the principles that are involved. So we'll start with Sister Christine, and then we'll go to you, Andrew, and see what you can say from your personal experience about that. So, Sister, would you lay out for us what are the principles of Catholic social teaching on this?
The principles, I think it's important to say that they are in the Bible first. We can find in the book of Genesis the main points of what is human vocation. Man is created in image and likeness of God. He's created from the beginning as a social community, the smallest community, man and woman. But this is the basis of society, and this comes from God. And man is responsible. He's made stewards of the creation, and here, from God's design, we have the activity of man in the world. That's important because when we deal with today's issues, we must remind the broader framework, which is the biblical one. And so, what are the principles? There are basically four, but the first one is the human dignity, rooted in the image and likeness that we have said. And from this human dignity, second principle is the common good. Man is living in society, so yes, he has rights rooted in his dignity, but these rights take place in a society which provides him for the common good, and there is no opposition between the needs of the person and the realization of the common good. And then in order to secure social justice, we have two principles that regulate the relationships between individuals and between groups, solidarity and subsidiarity. Solidarity between individuals, between groups, in order to make safe the help and the cooperation. And subsidiarity is linked with the hierarchical or organic organization of society, which is made of smaller groups and larger groups. Smaller one we have said is the family, and the larger one are institutions or intermediary bodies, associations, enterprises, etc. And the principle of subsidiarity, subsidium in Latin is help. So the larger groups must help the smaller one, but not intervene where there is no need to intervene, because of the responsibility of each one and his capacity to do something at his level. So it's to coordinate well the competencies of each level.
Okay. So Andrew, as you're listening to this, and I know you know it so well because we just had exams on this, didn't we?
Truly so.
So when you think of the four principles and the work that you've done with Focolare, is there one of those that stands out more than the other? Because you deal with non-Catholics, non-Christians, those who have no belief in anything. So what stands out for you? Because that's unusual work that you do.
Well, you know, these four principles are very much connected when you come to the real life, no? When it comes to day-to-day, just to share a little bit our experience with the poor people in these barrios in the Philippines, something which really, I mean, it all started off through trying to help a blind boy who was very interested in our kind of style of life, but he was blind, he needed to be accompanied everywhere, and he was very young, and anyway, it's a long story, but we started helping him out, and eventually we ended up helping another 600 children of his age who are living in very, very poor situations, sometimes without mom and dad, living all alone, and it was really a big, difficult situation. But what comes out first, I suppose, is the human dignity, which is so strong to see. I mean, what I realized was when I remember once one of these young children was telling me, "But do you think God loves us?" And I was so moved by the question, because it was a very sincere question. It was as if, there are many different levels of life, in the Philippines. And so one would kind of tend to think that he's not loved like the other children, And I told him, God loves you with preference. I mean, he would love you more than the others because he knows how much you need him, And I think he loves also the other children who are rich, but he loves them in as much as they share of what they have, I mean, and this boy, I remember how happy he was in order to really to be encouraged also to give of what he has. But maybe one thing which also comes up now in these situations is that some people are also attracted not only in being helped, but also they would like to give from their own, in some way. And I think this also comes in from the principle of subsidiarity. I remember there was a mom who was she was the mother of a boy who was being helped by our kind of social center, and she wanted to dedicate her time and then she got involved other mothers in order to earn some money by doing some fried banana chips or others. But apart from that, they also put up a kind of a dirty kitchen, you can call it. It was really very simple kitchen. It was like a very simple kind of 4 pillars with a little bit of an overhead roof, and they were cooking food in order to bring to the children who were at school, because in these situations for children to go to school, it means they have to walk something like 6-8 kilometers from in very difficult areas. Maybe they have to climb a little bit of a hillside and go there without a breakfast, and sometimes they don't want to go to school because they're really hungry and they want to stay at home in order to fetch something to eat, Instead, knowing that they would eat something even at school, that was really, but it was all run by these mothers, We used to supply a little bit the food, and they would cook it for the children and so on. I mean, it was really something magnificent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So,
I mean, I could go on for ages, but
you've got a lot of experience that way.
Yeah, if you have time, I share also another one.
Sure, because you may have to leave soon, right? If you do have to leave, then that's fine. So why not? We'll do that, and then we'll go back to Sister.
Yeah. One of the difficult things in helping out, especially in these social centers, I mean, we didn't really have so much experience. We really had a lot of love for these poor people, but we didn't have much experience also to do it properly in the right way in order not to make them dependent on us and so on. And I remember that one of the good situations where we could kind of give them a little bit more from all the things that we were receiving from donors from outside the country and so on, was during Christmas time. We used to give the whole basket of food or utilities they might need at home, they didn't really have a home or a house. It was really a shack. Very, very simple. But I remember that once we went to a far-off area and we brought all this stuff with us and we distributed to these poor families. And they were living on a rubbish dump. And the whole day was to look for, plastic or iron or glass, and they would just collect it and sell it, So they were quite poor and also very sickly people, And we went there and we brought them the stuff, and one of the families was absent. It was something really extraordinary, but they might have had something really urgent to do in other place, and they were all absent. And so we left these gifts for Christmas to another family, and we told them, look, when they come back, please give them to them, When it was on the 24th of December that we came to know, because this family came to visit us and told us, you know, the stuff that you left for us, we never received it. And we told them, oh. And we were also quite busy during those Christmas days, and the easiest thing to do was to make another package and give it to them, no? Yeah. And we said, no, but that's not really right, no? That's the easy way out, but that was not really good, no? We have to really help them to have this solidarity among themselves. Otherwise, it doesn't work. I mean, it's... and so we took out some of our time, which was not so easy, and we went to this area again, and we told them, but where is the stuff that we left with you, no? And they were a little bit shy, of course, but they put it all together, and we gave it to this family, and then we had kind of gathered together, we spoke about this mutual love and so on, and we really felt that the real gift was not so much this material, this food, etc., but it was the gospel message. And I remember on that very day, it was the 24th evening, no? In our center, we had a special evening mass, of course, and I remember we brought all these families, we asked people to help us with the transportation, and we brought them over to our center for the midnight mass, no? Christmas midnight mass, and it was so beautiful. They were so excited. They really put on the best that they could for this event. And I remember while going to drop them back home, no? I remember one of the mothers was telling me, we never sat down with people who had perfume. It was something really extraordinary for them. They never smelled perfume before, no? And they were so happy, no? They were I was really amazed, no? It was something like this.
Well, it's interesting that the reaction was not, I'm allergic, and they started sneezing, but they liked it. Sometimes
they liked it so much.
The reason I say that is because sometimes you go in the United States, even just being too close to the incense, people get upset and they say, oh, I have allergies. You can't wear perfume here, you can't do this because people say this.
No, this was really the opposite.
They never smelled it, and they weren't, repelled by it. On the contrary, they loved it. But we have incense all over the place too. Nobody ever complains about that or cough. I don't know. It's just funny that someone who's never smelled it is not repulsed by it, and they didn't have an allergic reaction either. Okay, that was a little silly. Anyway, all right. So let me go back to Sister Christine. All right, when would you say that the doctrine, if you will, on social justice started? Sometimes people say it started with a doctrine called Rerum Novarum, right, in 1891. Now, in other words, in terms of some things put down on paper by the Magister, by the Holy See, but there's been a development of it.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit of background.
It begins with Jesus Christ. Solidarity and etc. It begins with him. And the Church Fathers have developed a social teaching. So solidarity is not a new concept, human dignity neither. And so Rerum Novarum is the bedrock, it's the first document, as said, written by the Magisterium on this question only, on the social question after the industrialization and the bad consequences on the lives of the workers and on society as a whole. So it is the first step, the beginning of a new development, and then the topics were shifted according to the context that was changing. So in the 30s, the preoccupation was more the rise of the totalitarian states, and because the poor of the 19th century were no longer the same in the 30s, but there were also some poor after the Great Depression of 29. So the question is a bit different in the encyclical Quadragesimo Anno of Pope Pius XI. And his preoccupation is to rebuild a new social order for the world based on justice. He's the first to speak of social justice, and he speaks of solidarity too. and tries to give some guidelines for the new world order. After World War II, the main question will be peace in the world, and yes, the relationships between countries or blocks of countries during Cold War. Then with Paul VI, there is the main issue of the human development, which is linked to peace, to the question of peace. So all the fields of the social justice are interconnected, we can say, but the emphasis changes with the changing context.
Let's talk a little bit about this idea of human development, because you certainly need a degree of peace and leisure and a certain material stability. Certain things must be available for that to happen. Otherwise, all you're concerned about is simply getting the next meal. I mean, we just heard about some of that from Andrew. So, Sister, would you talk a little bit about that and why that is something that the church is focused on at all? You know, you would think, isn't it enough to be just and give to the poor and all that? Why this idea of human development on a personal level even, not just on the corporal? And then, Andrew, we can go to you if we have time and then see how you've seen that play out in the places that you've been. Okay?
Indeed.
Okay.
So the church is concerned by the moral quality of life. That's why human development is important. And Paul VI insists that human development is the development of all people and the whole man. So man in all its dimensions, body and mind, historical dimension of mankind and eschatological one, all the dimensions, cultural, etc. And he says that development is the new name of, peace is the new name of development. So there is a link. And why? Because human dignity, rooted in the image and likeness of God, is the foundation of social life. So if you are not in peace with yourself, if you have not the material condition for a decent life, you will not be able to participate in the life of the society, to be responsible in economic, political life, and you won't have the conditions to be educated and trained and to learn a profession and to realize yourself in your work and so help society and be part of the building of the common good of your family, your country.
And that's not being able to participate is something that to not be able to do that is you're not reaching the full dignity that is yours. You have to be able to give something of yourself, and this is something I think anyone feels. It's we see that sometimes in the United States when there are discussions about how much welfare should be given to people. And what we mean by that is, giving money for those who can't make way for themselves because they haven't been able to get a job. And there are always battles about whether or not how much and for how long and is it good. And clearly, the state has a responsibility for those that are unable to take care of themselves for a time. But at the same time, to be perpetually in that state of receiving help and never be able to participate, that you don't have that dignity, and you're missing out on also that sense of self-respect as a human being and being able to give something of yourself. There is that drive to do so, right? Okay, Andrew, have you seen that play out? Okay.
Can you repeat, Natalia? Sorry.
Oh, yes, sure. I'm wondering if in the experiences you've had in various places, whether Pakistan or Philippines or even here, but for those people who have not been able to realize themselves in some way, that they've not been able to participate, and what that does to them. Have you seen that turn around for people, and could you...
Oh yes, very much so. Speaking about this Popolorum Progressio, which is the really the root of other two encyclicals, this Caritas in Veritatis and Solicitude Rei Socialis. I have noticed a big change. I mean, even though I was there only for 14 years, but also speaking to many of the missionary sisters and missionary fathers in Pakistan. Now I'm switching to Pakistan. No longer in Philippines. I was so amazed by the great work that the church, the Catholic Church has done in Pakistan through the missionaries. It's really amazing. I mean, you have to keep in mind that Pakistan was originally in the subcontinent, which was under this caste system, no? And even though now it is abolished, no, but still it's still there. I mean, in a different way, but in a hidden way, but it's still there. And especially our Christian brothers and sisters who are living in this beloved country, no, they belong usually to the lower castes, no, and for them it was not so easy to embrace Christianity and little by little acquire this dignity that Sister was speaking about, no, because it takes generations, no. Now Christianity is there since the late 1800s, no, and little by little you could see these Christians, they can now go to university, though not in a big numbers, no, but still, I mean, they are achieving better academic results, and they are not so inferior to others as before. And I tell you the truth, even though in a very short time that I was there, I mean, the changes have been very big. And you really need to grow in culture, grow in participation in the public life. It's so important. Even though they're a very tiny minority in such a big Muslim environment, it's amazing, and the more they grow in dignity, the more they are able also to dialogue with their Muslim brothers. I mean, who are living next door or nearby, at work or at school, because many times, just imagine, in one college or in one school, you get one Christian or a couple of Christians in the midst of about 1,000 or 2,000 or even more, no? So it's not so easy.
Oh, the Italian internet, isn't it wonderful?
So this growth in dignity is so important. This development is so important in order to grow in this social life.
I have a question. So the idea of the caste system that's still there, you say it's not so externally manifest, but it still comes out once in a while. Now, how did you see that? And you're saying that the church's influence in the services that have been provided so that people can realize themselves, how specifically has that helped? Is it through the education system? Is it through conversations they've had, or both?
Well, just keep in mind that the culture in Pakistan is so different from other places, no? Especially we who are living in a Western world, no? And to say it very briefly, so much of a life of a typical Pakistani centers around marriage. It seems that marriage is really the center, the focus of I mean, it's the center of a normal life, no? And so when marriages are arranged, or maybe there's also the so-called love marriages, which are not arranged, but they are kind of now more and more coming to be so. I mean, in this country. Well, of course, you have to marry someone who is from your own caste. Of course, this word caste is never used, but it's. I mean, you have to be in your own category, let's say, no? Yeah. Otherwise, it's impossible, no? Especially if a poor person were to marry a rich girl or a rich boy, it's totally impossible. So in reality, it's still there, even though it's not so evident. Even though it's, I mean, legally speaking, it's abolished, no? So But little by little, I see that one of the things which can help this country is education. Education and also a growth in culture, because it's not only academic, but also a more, deeper reflection about life. And I see a great potential in a country which is so populated, no?
Well, when you say growth in culture, what do you mean? What do you envision when you say that?
Yeah, of course, not so much the cult. I mean, it's more kind of, apart from the academic part, no, to be more learned about what's going on, also capable of reflection, capable to know more of what's going on in the world, to be more open to, to different types of thinking, because the Pakistani culture is quite strong. It's very strong, and many times it seems that it's really monolithic. No, you either stick to it, or there's no way of changing any parts. But when one grows in a cultural way, one kind of broadens the vision, and can see that it's one of many, and of course it's very important. It can be a contribution to other places in the world, but it can also receive other contributions from different parts, no? And so I suppose that cultural growth is this opening up, and at the same time also growing in depth in knowing more yourself by dialoguing with other cultures. I don't know if it's a little bit clearer.
Yes, no, it is. All right. Yeah, thank you. Sister Christine, I wanted to shift focus a little bit. So sometimes what does the church say as far as social teaching goes about the different realms that, let's say, the church is involved in, and then you have the secular world? So, for example, economics, does that fall under any kind of moral scrutiny as far as the church goes? Some people would say no, but that's not really the case. So what does the church have a right to say anything about economic policies, about secular affairs?
Yes, the church has a concern for all the fields of human life, so also for economics. The church has not the solutions, the practical solutions to each single economic problem. But usually the problems are moral problems. For instance, enterprise is a good thing, but what is the end? Is it to produce something useful to better man's life, or is it only profit, the aim of the enterprise? And on this, the church can give some guidelines and can help entrepreneurs to make the right decisions, prudent, and because enterprise must make some profit, otherwise it fails down.
Right.
So it's important, but what is the end? And the church has the wisdom to share with the actors of economic life.
And so the idea of the state that loves sports in the United States, football. Some of the things they sell for these events that probably get thrown out the minute you walk out the stadium, like these big foam fingers, that say number one. I know you've seen them, but that's what I think of when you tell me there's something really useful. You think of these millions of these foam fingers that are about a foot high, and people put them on their hands that shows our team is number one, and it gets thrown out afterwards. And so it seems like it's sort of a silly thing. I'm sure somebody's making a lot of money, probably in China, not in the United States, but still. What about globalization? I think industrialization has now become globalization as far as the concern goes. How does the church speak to this? Because now you're not talking about a particular country and their practices for good or ill, but now you're looking at the world, and you have organizations now internationally that are doing this. And, it seems so big. And what are some of the things the church is saying about that today?
In some way, it's a chance, because we are sharing the competencies or the something which is born in one country is exporting in all over the world, and it's a chance to discover new things. But something we are more manipulated by advertising, by the the economic power of those firms. And what is important is to educate. Educate to make use of our reason in order to know better how to consume. Because we are all economic actors, even if we don't work in a business, in a firm. And we are all consumers. We all buy what we eat, what we wear, and all we need for our life. So it's important to educate from the youngest age. And in a Christian perspective, what is really useful for you, and what is useful also for this leisure part, which is necessary too. But what would be a waste, or what is unjust, because you know that this is done in an unjust way, because the workers are paid with unjust wages. It's important, and if you can also to make lobby to boycott some of these articles. It's not easy because it's impossible to know everything of what you are buying. I know that I went once to buy a microwave, and I asked one which was not from China, and the seller said me, "Goodbye." If you want a microwave, you must accept that it's made in China. So you cannot be a purist, and not all that comes from China is bad.
But there's that desire to support the manufacturing in your home country and keep things there, and that way you get the workers who are in this country with their jobs putting money into this economy, and there's a desire for that. In the U.S., very often, those who are very concerned with pro-life issues, they'll often have lists of companies that have paid lobbyists for, quote-unquote, pro-choice legislation and all that. And so they'll have a list, and if you look at the most comprehensive of these lists, you can't buy anything. You have to grow your own food, but then you're worried about the bucket you would use to bring it in from it, because that was made by a company that must give to somebody. So it gets to a point where you can't get too scrupulous about it, because, what are you going to do? It's a problem. But
Pope Francis helps in Laudato Si. He gives some guidelines, and you can choose small things, and you can choose to do small changes in your life that is on the way to a sober life, and that will change in the end. That's not today. The world won't change because you have changed this habit, consuming habit, or something like that.
So, for example, could you give us something from the document, what he says, like so the changes that could be made, for example, when he says habits that could change?
For example, we know that the glasses, the plastic glasses are not good. We have a meeting this summer in our congregation, and we choose to have real glasses and not to throw each day some of them. And you can make the parishes sensible to this question, and it will take time, but it will change. Or for the vegetables, it's easier to find some which will near to you, and to take those of the season and not outside season. So you are changing economic life by small choices.
Andrew, do you have a few more minutes with us?
Yes.
I wanted to ask a question based on something Sister Christine started to talk about as the reason we began exploring vocation, which was the young people that you encountered, and this is a secular university, right, where you were studying, and they had wrong ideas about Christ and all that. And yet young people, even if they're far away from the faith, they do have a concern for social things. They're concerned about whether it's the rights of immigrants, or whether it's, the green movement or whatever. But there is that movement to go outside of themselves and to be concerned about others, and often with a sort of global perspective in general, in some ways. and in some circles I've seen. I don't know if that's what you encounter, but I've noticed that with young people in general. You know, they very often become vegetarian because they're concerned about this, or you know, everything has to be green. You know, that's the big thing. So this could be a vehicle to introduce them to Christ. How would you do that? What do you, Sister Christine, and then Andrew? I'll go to you in a second. About how could you use something from the church's social teaching to maybe get young people to think about Christ in a personal way? Can you think of a way to get them to make that jump, seeing as they might be interested in some of those things?
It's not immediate, I think, but through social questions, you can make them think of what a good life is, and then introduce them to what Christ has done to make life better, and read with them some parables or some works of Jesus on the concrete.
On the concrete, yeah, that's true. Yeah, on the concrete. Did you find that a lot of the young people you had encountered when you just began to study, had they fallen away from the faith, or had they not been raised in it at all? I mean, did they have any idea?
The education was very weak in France at that time. It was also, if they received the sacraments, I think that faith was not deep in them. But some rediscovered after, in a more mature way. So it's worth preaching and telling this. And sometimes they say, wow, it's great, it's beautiful. Why they don't tell me this before? It's worth.
Now, Andrew, have you, especially working with young people here, have you seen that at all?
Oh yes. I first of all, speaking about young people, no, I've been in contact with so many during these last 10 years from all over the world, and I see a natural drive, and I think we had it also as young people ourselves, for a better world, for something different, or something even more higher. No, I mean, they always look for something really which is a little bit more idealistic, no? And they've got this natural drive, and I think we who can act sometimes like formators or people who accompany them in this period of life, I think it's very important to encourage them to look for those ideals that they have in their heart. For example, during this last month or so, I'm arranging a group of young people who are going to Kenya in order to do a social experience in a place very close to Nairobi. They will spend 10 days over there in our center. They will be visiting. They will be doing social work in various parts of the city, especially in the slum area, but even visiting some hospital or some prison camps and so on. And then they will be transferring to another country nearby, which is Tanzania. And also there we have a school for young children, so they will be also helping out over there, either teaching some English or mathematics or doing some other things in the garden and so on. No? So like the Sister Christine was saying, in doing these social things, many times they start to reflect a little bit more, because usually they come from Western countries, and they find many things kind of ready. I mean, they don't have to cook, they've got the shops, they've got the bars and so on. Instead over there, it kind of makes them reflect. And I noticed that many times they would often be sitting down in the chapel and maybe having some time with God and going a little bit deeper. I mean, also being cut off a little bit from Facebook and the other social networks. No, it really helps them to focus a little bit more. And but like this group, about 30 people who are going down to Africa. Also, we have others going to South America or to the Philippines or to Pakistan. Anyway, we've got various groups going on, especially during their summer holidays. No, and in my opinion, I think these young people are very much attracted towards economy, towards, I don't know, art, music, tourism. I mean, they are, in my opinion, they are excellent ways to enter little by little through, like Don Bosco used to say, no? You love what they love, and then they will love what you love, that is God, no? If you kind of make yourself so close to their desires, no? Make yourself one, sometimes we can say, with what they have in their heart. Of course, not sin, but something which is good, no? Like something like economics, like art, and so on, no? And eventually, you can also see that you can communicate a lot, because at the end, sorry?
No, I was going to say when that happens, you show them a sincere love for the things that they love that belong to the higher realm. You talk about art or anything with culture. Perhaps they have some social.
Exactly.
Them. That giving them that kind of affirmation is priceless.
Yes. For example, also during the summer, we have a group of architects who are studying architecture, I mean, in some universities here in Europe, and they come together. They are about 50 or so, and of course they will speak about architecture and also urban work and so on. And many times you would realize that even the way that we, how the cities are formed and so on, there's so much also interaction, relationship. And you can also move on to mutual love if you want, no? And also our cities can be more beautiful if there's this mutual love among citizens, no? So in a certain way, you can always bring them to the gospel message, no? Little by little, no? To show them where the ideal is and what they have in their heart kind of matches, no? And so they usually are very happy to realize that.
I want to talk about, we've got a few more minutes left. Let's talk about something kind of timely, which would be the question of immigration. It's very timely here in Europe and in the States with different groups for different reasons. But we'll see here. So let's start with Sister Christina, what the Church has to say about immigration and what the rights are for the individual person, what the rights are of a country, and how we might balance those out. That's a big question.
Yeah, big question. First of all, the Church said that mobility is part of human history, and the first migrant is Abraham. Joseph and Mary were also migrants, the prototype of the migrant family. And the Church says also that it is a chance to, it's the birth of the new humanity, the universal communion that will be the Church in the end. But the fulfillment, we know, will come only with the new earth and new heaven that comes from God. So what we can do is to walk on this path towards universal communion. And it's not easy. It's not easy because usually migrations are seen as a threat, a problem for a country. Because we think we have poor means to welcome all the migrants. We can see in the south of Italy, it's overwhelmed by all those migrants. But the Pope today denounces a lot the indifference. We know that many of those coming from North Africa are dying in the Mediterranean. So we cannot be blind on this reality. And it's important also to recall that the nations should not be left alone. It's a global problem. So we must discover new solidarity between among the nations to find how to tackle with this. And migrants can be a chance also for the transit or destination countries because they come with skills, with competencies, and they can contribute to the wealth of the host country and also of their origin country, because many of them help their families that have stayed there.
What about the aspect of assimilation, for example, integrating into the society? So here in Europe, in the United States, you have a Christian underpinning to the rights that even secular Europe is calling human rights. They may not recognize it outwardly, but there's a Christian underpinning to this. It comes from Christianity. And where you have groups that are living in enclaves and want to set up their own legal systems within a larger system as a country that has its own civil code, you can see the difficulty of a state wanting to maintain its sovereignty and also, demanding that those who come into this country follow the rules that are in place with us. Whereas if they want to set up own rules in different, this is a struggle when there isn't integration. And let's say that there are few, we're not saying everybody, but who believe that it's okay to deceive who they consider to be an enemy to their religion. These are issues that people are dealing with. I would say more in Europe at this point. In the United States, it's a different issue. But that's the difficulty now. How would you respond to someone who would say?
It's very difficult because they have the right to have their own culture. But if they come in a country and they ask asylum, for instance, they must abide the law of the country. There is no other way. So we must find the right balance between their rights and the rights of the country. Another difficulty is that they are coming, those who the asylum seekers flee from violence or war, etc. But they come from countries where they are Christian but live with Muslims and can find the same difficulties in the camps when they arrive that they had in their country.
We don't hear about that story very much, I have to say. I didn't think too much about it until you brought it up when we were speaking today. And that's true, where the situation, they left their country because of war, Christians, and now they're living in camps and they're finding the situation worse in the camps, and they end up going home, and you think, my goodness, it's what a tragic situation.
And we mustn't be naive. They are human persons, so they are also sinners. And the dynamics, also negative dynamics, happen in the camp. So how to deal with it? The first thing is to know better where they come from and what are the problems in their country, and to help them try to...
So, Natalia,
how much time do we have? A couple of minutes?
Well, you can't. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me just very quickly, Andrew, you've worked with, side by side with, in Pakistan, for example, non-Christians and all that. How do you see the situation here? If you can sum it up quickly, maybe we'll do another show one day and talk about just this. But
I didn't get the question. Sorry, maybe it got interrupted.
That's right. The question is regarding the influx of migrants in such great numbers, and many of whom do not share the Christian faith. And
sure,
so,
yes.
Yeah, the idea of human rights and human dignity is not the same. Whether it's recognized by secular Europe or not, they have Christian roots in what they believe. So you've worked side by side in other countries with non-Christians, with Christians. Do you see a kind of hope for assimilation here? In great numbers, do you think it's just isolated instances? England doesn't seem to show that. In other places where you have people living in groups and are not assimilated, they're not integrated, they want their own sort of Sharia law and that sort of thing.
Yeah. it's kind of there's no easy answer, to tell you the truth. Sometimes I have the impression that whenever I see Indians or Pakistanis or Filipinos here in Europe, for example, when I'm sitting with them in the underground or on the bus or something like that, I sometimes wonder what their background is like and what they are going through, and I feel that there's a big need to get to know a little bit, I mean, the fundamental points of the other person's culture in order to relate, and a little bit better. And actually, here in the Focolare headquarters here in Rome, I'm in touch with a group of young people who are Chinese. And they had to leave China because of persecution and so on, and they're actually Christians. And like Sister Christine was telling us, they found it very hard to stay in the camps because the others were Muslims, and it seemed that as if they were really feeling very uncomfortable, especially as worship is concerned and so on. And we found another place for them to be a little bit on their own, and it was really, it worked out better, because they could really interact a little bit more with the society here, learn a little bit of Italian, a little bit more, because they were quite disheartened before as they were in this other camp, But then also some Muslims who are from different parts of Central Asia or even from the Middle East, we realized that as soon as they get a chance to get a job, even if it's a very low-paying job, and become a little bit more integrated in society here, they are much more free and happy. It's as if they reacquire their dignity, and they also learn how to get along with people who are of a different culture around them. But I feel as Europeans, it would be so good if I don't know, if authorities were to give the possibility to put away this Islamophobia, first of all, because many times they're so afraid of the thing that is different, and in reality also you can't blame them, because if you were to listen to the news and read the newspaper, it's so much in that direction, But I think the more you learn about the other person's culture, you learn also how to love the other person, and little by little also build that friendship and see what are the things that are common and what are the things that are different, and respect them. And there's a lot to do, and sometimes I feel as if the news that are given out on TV or on newspapers or even on the internet, they're not working really in that direction. There's a lot to do, especially for us Christians. I can see a lot of positive coming out from the messages of Pope Francis, but there's still so much to do. And in a certain way, I'm not disheartened at all, but we should really get together and do something.
Well, I think that would be a whole other show. We could do that one day. Even when we all come back in September, October, when we come back from school. Okay, well, we're out of time. I know that. So, Sister Christine, Andrew, thank you very much for joining me today. This is great. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Natalia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Natalia.
All right. And Bob, thank you very much also for moderating back home.
Wonderful program, and we'll be back again next week with more thrilling guests on Just Plain Theology from Rome, Sweet Rome with Natalia. And in the meantime, may God bless each and every one of you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
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 We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.